Mind Over Matter. I'm your host, Anya, and today we have an extraordinary guest, Queen D Michelle. Queen D Michelle is a seasoned author, blogger, and mindfulness educator with a wealth of experiences from around the globe. Today, we'll be diving into her latest book, The Road to Well-Being, which explores the six aspects of total well-being: spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, social, and financial. So let's get ready for an enlightening conversation on how to achieve a balanced and fulfilling life.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here and just being able to talk about being on that road to well being because aren't we all on that road?
Yeah. So, what inspired you to write The Road to Well-Being?
Well, it kind of came, uh, it kind of came in a time in my life when I was actually experiencing a spiritual awakening myself. And within that, there were a couple of books that were written, and The Road to Well-Being was the very first. It was the first while I was in the midst of discovering me uh, in a way that I never had before. I was living in Mexico, and I had retired from the United States. I was an elementary middle school teacher, and after 27 years, I retired and decided that I didn't want to stay here in the States because, if you do, you have to continue to work. Even though you've put in, those many hours or that long, those many years, you still have to work to maintain your way of being, okay? And I just didn't want to continue to work because I felt like I had already paid my dues in that respect. And so I moved to Mexico, and it was there that I experienced a spiritual awakening because now I didn't have the distractions that are normally uh, mm, in our face on a daily. I could take time to delve inside of me, which included a lot of meditation and yoga and hiking and eating right and being out in nature. All of those things help to bring about this transformation, this spiritual transformation. And in the midst of it, I wrote The Road to Well-Being.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll go a little bit further now at this point, and let's talk about those six aspects that you mentioned before. You mentioned, and of course, you're absolutely correct: spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, social, and financial. Those six aspects make up the totality of our well-being. Now, those aspects can be healthy and balanced, or they can be unhealthy and unbalanced. Now, you know how like in school you were graded for English or the language and math and science and you have what you call like a report card. So what I would like in a sense is for those six aspects to be for one to write them down like you would a report card and then to grade them, give them a grade in exactly where they feel they are as it relates to that aspect. So you kind of really got to know what that aspect holds. So let's start with I hope hopefully those listeners have written down. Go ahead and write spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, social, and financial. You're going to grade yourself. You're going to grade yourself in those areas, in that aspect. And from there, I have an activity, a daily activity, actually. It's called a self-care calendar that will help you to bring all aspects into balance, in a sense, okay? So let's start with spiritual. Now, a healthy spiritual aspect. Now, I also want you to know that this is just an 18-page ebook that I'm not going to go into all of the, what would make a spiritual healthy aspect, or not even on the negative side, the unhealthy. But I will give you one to kind of put you in the right mindset. Okay. So here we go with spiritual. A healthy, a person with a healthy spiritual aspect, you would be able to pretty much pick that person out immediately. You could tell. And if you have a or you feel a very deep conscious connection with all that is, then chances are you have a healthy and balanced spiritual aspect. Now, that's just one of the characteristics is feeling a deep conscious connection. So grade yourself as it relates to how do you feel about the conscious connection you have with all that is. Now, an unhealthy spiritual aspect would be that person who is an overthinker. That's just one of the characteristics. An overthinker. Think. They think. They're always, well, probably up at night because they're overthinking all matters. Okay? So think about where you are as on that spectrum as it relates to feeling a deep conscious connection, or, or on that other end, being an overthinker. Now, the next one is emotional. Now, again, a healthy, someone carrying a characteristic of a healthy emotional aspect would be that these are some of the most honest people you'll ever meet. Okay. Now, if we take that to the uh, other end of that, where it's unhealthy emotional characteristic, or it would be that person who has low self-esteem. So again, these is just one characteristic, and there's several for each aspect, but this is one that can help you when it comes to just kind of grading yourself where you are. Now we'll move to mental. Now, that mental aspect, that's that person who's open-minded. They're extremely open-minded, and they are respectful of contrast. In other words, something that's not like them, or it's different from them. They don't judge it or condemn it. They respect it, and they respect the contrast of it. Now, on the other end of that spectrum, someone who's dealing with, say, an unhealthy, unbalanced mental aspect, that's that person who's easily distracted. Oop. Yep, distracted. They can't hold on to um a thought, really, that, or whatever new, whatever that's what's happening right now. There's no bottom line for them as it relates to just picking a lane and being in it. Put it that way. They are easily distracted, easily moved off of there. It doesn't take much to move them from one thought to the next. Okay. So that's mental. Now let's talk about physical. Now, a healthy physical aspect, that person is very mindful of their gateways. They are mindful of their gateways when you're dealing with a strong, well-balanced physical aspect. They watch what they are mindful of what they let into their eye gate. They are mindful of what they let into their ear gate. They are mindful of what they let into their mouth gate. They are mindful of what they let into their personal, private part of them, of their body. They are mindful of those gateways, understanding that everything can't go in. Everything can't go in. Everything can't be watched, be listened to, be eaten, and to be laid down with it, if you will. Now, a person on the other end of that spectrum who is dealing with a unbalanced physical aspect, an unhealthy physical aspect, they're pretty simple. They're out of shape. They're out of shape. They are out of shape physically. They're not minding those gateways, and any and everything is getting in. And they're out of shape physically. So when you think about the physical, go ahead and grade yourself. How mindful are you of your gateways? Or, in another respect, how out of shape are you? So go ahead and give yourself a grade on that. Then we move to social. That social aspect, that person with a healthy one, a healthy social aspect, they are involved and they are connected with their community, with their line of service, their service work. They are involved with being an upliftment to their community. They're connected in ways that help raise the vibration of where they are. Now, on the other end of that perspective, when it comes to the social aspect, an unhealthy characteristic for the social aspect would be they are extremely materialistic. It's all about the newest this, the newest that, the gadget for this, the clothes they wear, the makeup they wear, their hair, and anybody who's dealing with them know that socially, hey, it's all about material to them, not the connection, not the involvement, but what you get out of it. They're always looking for what they can get out of it. How will it serve them? Not how will it serve someone else. That's that unhealthy social aspect. Now, last but not least is the financial. Now, that's pretty simple when you can grade yourself financially on whether it's healthy, get that aspect is healthy or unhealthy. Now, if it's healthy, you're living within your means, period. You are living within your means. If that's a healthy financial aspect that's happening. If you are on that other end of the spectrum with an unhealthy financial aspect, that's what we call the working poor. The working poor, that's a characteristic of an unhealthy financial aspect, is the working poor. I mean, they work 2, 3 jobs and a lot of times not because, of course, they want to, but because they have to, but they're still not making ends meet. They're not able to live within their means. And I know sometimes, the way it's set up, the way the government and things set up, it's set up to keep us down, to keep their foot on our neck, if you will. Just keep you working until you can't work anymore. That's why I left the United States. That was one of it's very unhealthy as it relates to the financial aspect because you really can't get ahead. So now that we've kind of went over the 6 aspects and what's a healthy one and what's an unhealthy one as it relates to the aspects, hopefully you've graded yourself. And in doing so, I have now, if you're not pleased with your report card, Here's somebody who's pleased with those 6 aspects. Somebody who feels a deep conscious connection, an honest person, an open-minded person, a person who's mindful of their gateways, a person who's involved and connected, and a person who's living within their means. Wow, that's a good looking report card, right? If you got A's in all of those categories. And then on the negative side, that's that overthinker, that low self-esteem, and easily distracted and out of shape, materialistic, in the working poor. So on that spectrum, if you've graded yourself and you're like, I don't have straight A's, well, let's shoot for straight A's. Let's shoot for straight A's. And in regards to balancing those 6 aspects. Did you grade yourself?
I did, yeah.
You did? Okay, good, good, good. All right now. So are you pleased with your outcome? Or do you see some areas in your on your report card where you can tighten it up a little bit?
Yeah, not exactly satisfied with it.
Okay. All right. Well, I have an exercise that I would like for you to start trying. You're going to need a calendar for this. Okay. Um, now, what happened with me is that I tasked myself with 5 daily things, 5 daily things, and I keep 5 of the 6 aspects consistently in my awareness. Okay, as I go through the day. So, as I go about my day flowing, if I'm able to get all 5 tasks that day, I count it as a 5-star day. And it's not easy. Okay, so take for instance, and I always make like a little, take for instance today. Today is the 25th. You have a calendar in front of you. This is what I started off with. P, write this down, P, E, W, S, M. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 letters, right? That's actually 5 tasks that will go on the little bottom of the square for your calendar. Mine was, and I'm using mine as an example, my word was Pew's M. It's easier when you kind of make up something. So anyway, the letters were PEWSM, right? Well, the P stood for plank. And it also had something to do with my physical aspect, meaning that every day I started off, it was only like 10 seconds, but I got up to 30 seconds. So I planked every day up, for 10 seconds. Then it was 12, then it was 13. And that I counted that as physical because I was strengthening my core doing that plank. Okay. Pretty simple. I mean, I'm down on the floor for 10 seconds. Bam, I planked. So now I can cross that P off as it relates to physical, right? That physical aspect. Then there was E. Now, E in this acronym I have stood for exercise. And it also stood for social because I hiked. I was a hiker when I lived in Mexico. So whenever I hiked or walked, got that exercise in, got my steps in. When I was hiking, I counted social because, I hiked with a group. So that was social. And then if I'm just walking, my dog and I'm getting my steps in, that's physical. So if I hiked, walked my dog that day, that's E. I crossed that E off. That took care of exercise. And it also tapped into the physical and social aspect. Then remember I had W. Now W tapped into, for me, it tapped into the mental and emotional aspect. See, because I'm a writer, I'm a blogger, I'm a reader. So those days that I sat, at the table and I'm writing or I'm getting my blog out, or, I'm reading, then I'm dealing with my mental and emotional aspect. So I can cross that W out, right? And the next letter was S, which was for me, it stood for Spanish. See, because I was learning another language. And so that again tapped into my mental, right? When I studied Spanish daily, and sometimes it was just 10 minutes on Duolingo. That was it. But I tapped in to my mental by studying Spanish, right? That mental aspect. And then finally, the M at the end was for meditate. And that tapped into my spiritual aspect. I meditated every day. So here I am going through my day. Sometimes I didn't get to, if I was able to get to all five, I crossed out all letters, then I would give myself a star. Okay. For that day, that's a 5-star because I tapped in, I touched base with all aspects of my the totality of my well-being. So, this particular day on the 25th, if I was saying that this was done, it was a 5-star day because all aspects were touched in. Now, I even got my family, sometimes they would call and they would say, "Hey, how was your day?" And I said, "Oh, it was a 3-star. And it was a 4-star." Meaning that, but I am aware of, and I'm keeping in my mind, in my awareness, those 6 aspects, or at least 5, because I didn't deal with financial in any way, shape, or form too much. Uh, if I touch those aspects only daily, and I'm able to cross them off, yep, physical, yep, emotional, yep, mental, I've done these things by simply just living. I get up, I plank, I go and walk my dog, I work on my blog, I practice Spanish, and then I meditate. All aspects were touched in that way. So you do that every day on your calendar, then you can really get a grasp on what areas that you are lacking in and where you could, bring more balance to it. So, and the big question is, how many 5-star days did you have at the end of the month? How many 5-star days did you have? Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's an amazing way to actually keep track. And I'm definitely gonna start doing this.
Well, good for you.
Mm-hmm. So, how can someone identify if an aspect of their well being is unbalanced?
How can it what?
How can someone identify if an aspect of their well being is unbalanced?
How can they identify? Well, again, there are several characteristics up under each aspect. So there's several characteristics that will let you know if that spiritual is unbalanced. And see, I could list all 6, but again, those aspects are and those characteristics are located in my book, The Road to Well-Being. And I think just that it's only 18 pages, and it really breaks down each aspect. And excuse me, with it come suggestions and ideas for how one can bring that aspect back into balance. This self-care calendar, that's definitely one uh uh exercise that you can definitely start today in hoping to recognize what those characteristics are.
So, thank you so much, Queen D. Michelle, for sharing your wisdom and experiences with us today. Listeners, if you're ready to embark on your own road to well being, start by exploring the 6 aspects and integrating mindfulness into your daily life. Remember, achieving a balanced and fulfilling life is your birthright. Stay mindful and keep journeying towards inner peace